little ohms. Let's try to find copyright-free ohm. Is he still going? BB can talk all day.
Yeah, 1 second.
Thank you.
It's not true. It's a very small percent. I'll send you a picture of it because it's in Hebrew. But I'll send you it right now. I just sent it to you in your back channel. It's a yaga.
The United States is a renegade country. Maybe we don't feel like that on the inside of the country, but I'm in a situation where I don't hear gunshots. And I know that people may not hear them generally in some parts of, I don't want to name any particular states, but because gun violence is everywhere in the United States, it actually really is, done by different people. But there's something that's been going on in the United States for a long time. It goes back way before I was born, because there was a handgun. The use of guns in the United States society and before the U.S. in the Americas, came with the Europeans, basically. But there was a gun that some people may remember called the Saturday Night Special. And I've always wondered, where did this horrific name? Obviously, I think it pretty much implies that people used this gun to settle scores on Saturday nights, which is very sad. But I remember growing up hearing about pistols being called Saturday Night Special. This was like from the media. This was not from people that I knew personally. And my grandfather was a homicide detective. He was a police officer. But this particular situation, okay. I've worked in human rights and elections. I worked in Bosnia. I worked in a place called Srebrenica. I remember one time, well, it was not in Srebrenica, but in another community, another village nearby, where U.S. military was responsible for that part of Bosnia. This goes back to the immediate post-war time, and they had the S-4 troops from NATO, stabilization force, they're called. And so I happened to be in a sector that was U.S. military, S-4 troops. And I'm working in the local municipal building with the local people. They're trying to reestablish their local government. And the main part of that was to reestablish the ability to vote, which I'm talking about November 4th, because that's at the heart. Everything that is at the heart, to show up to vote because you care, because you understand that's all they ask of you as a citizen. Well, not only that, but actually you need to run for office too, and you need to know what the issues are. But anyway, so these American soldiers come through on their patrol, and Lord have mercy, but this one soldier, he was carrying a firearm. The local people freaked out. They did not, I don't know how to describe it, but because they had just come out of an armed conflict where neighbors killed each other, a civil war. And it was against the rules of escort. They were not supposed to bring firearms into buildings on their patrol, but this dude did, a young white American soldier. And everybody in the building noticed it. We are immune. We are not immune, impervious. We have forgotten something. To even talk about murder by gun, I don't care if it's hunting rifle or whatever. But the United States is off the track. And I had a total stranger, Scottish white man, on a plane flight in Africa. Some years ago, this man, he decided to chat me up. I'm sitting by the window, the dude sits beside me. He had started talking to me in the terminal, which is a regional terminal, and not an international flight, not a long flight. Nice person. And the dude says, when he finds out I live in Italy also, he says, well, you better stay in Italy because there's going to be a race war.
But what does this have to do with the question of whether the motive is necessary?
This kind of violence, I can't deal, Gary, I think to my ear, it was sounding like you're doing both sidesism. And that's far from the way it actually is. It's so far. As a child, I witnessed 4 political assassinations, was it? President Kennedy, Malcolm X. Some people wouldn't count, but he counts.
So you're kind of making the point that I've been trying to make by suggesting that we have to tally up how many political assassinations were made of people on the left, and how many political assassinations have been made of people on the right, and that will give us a clear picture of where the ill is in our society. So if more people on the left,
me and one other black girl, we integrated our junior high and high school in Pennsylvania, and it's like so Republican and stuff. Some of these kids, I mean, I knew these people. They were not all friends of mine. And some of them were not interested in being friends with me because I was a black person. And here we are.
We know that there's racism that is ingrained in our society.
It's beyond that. It's beyond that. What it is, and Nancy McLean's book, Democracy in Chains, the deep history of the radical right's stealth plan for America.
So just to sum up, it does matter, and what matters is that the right is the dirty side of the aisle, because that's where all this is coming from. Is that your argument?
Okay. What I'm saying is that, as some people say, because I vote, but I just, this is like so complicated, so complex. But we have a 34-time convicted felon in the White House.
We know all that, but that's not what we're here to discuss today. We've discussed it ad nauseum on this stage. The question is, and if you could focus on the question, you said that you saw the title of the room and it prompted
in a vacuum.
You said that you saw the title of the room and that prompted you to come up on the stage, and thus far, unless I was invited on the stage.
I was invited on the stage.
That's fine. I'm just saying, I don't know how you got on the stage, whether you were invited on the stage or whether you raised your hand. Great. That's great. It doesn't matter to me whether you were invited or not.
You spent 8 minutes. I didn't finish what I was saying, but if this is the end of it, then I'll shut my mouth.
I'm not asking you to shut your mouth. I'm asking to try to bring this around and focus at the topic at hand, not whether Donald Trump is a felon.
Because this is not about this Robinson. You know, what's his name?
What is it about?
Judge?
What is it about? Tell me very succinctly right now.
It's
This
about
emer-
the breakdown of the United States. And right now we're talking about a breakdown on the right, because this was not somebody from the left that shot this fellow.
Okay, you know
So
that.
far, and
You know that.
Judge,
You know that.
Judge
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Judge Luttig, his own grandmother talked about the situation.
How do you know that?
Judge Luttig,
How do you know? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Have the FBI investigated. But let me make one more point, and then I'm going to leave it alone, because you want to see it a certain way. And
No, it's not that I want to see it a certain way. I want you to address the issue.
Does not count.
I want you to address the issue.
Told us, Judge Luttig said in the summer of 2022, after the January 6th killings, they were killings too, but the attack on the Capitol, where I used to work, he said that Donald Trump and his supporters and allies are a clear and present danger to Americans.
And that's why Charlie Kirk is dead today.
Yes, because he's part of that whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was a victim of it. He was a victim of his support for the evil Republican.
No, somebody quoted what he said about George Floyd, which was so tragic.
I quoted what he said about George Floyd, by the way.
No, I didn't hear. I'm talking about something I read earlier.
I quoted it yesterday. I don't remember whether it was on.
I wasn't here yesterday. I'm talking about something I saw.
I'm just saying that I recognize that. So your argument
I'm not just talking to you. There's other people on here too.
I know that, Marion. Quit being so contentious.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. As best as I can tell, Marion just illustrated the problem. She knows for a fact that the right is responsible for all the evil in the United States. And I'm sure some come up to the stage and say that they know for a fact that the left is responsible for the evil in the United States. That's the problem, in my humble opinion. That's not to say that the points that Marion raised are not accurate. I'm not saying that, and I don't want to be represented in my admonishment of the discourse. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that she's got it in her mind, and maybe she's right, that all the problems of our society come from the right, just like Donald Trump and his followers have it in their mind, and maybe they're right, that all problems of society come from the left. And so long as we continue to do this finger pointing, and you're wrong, no, you're wrong, we're never going to resolve the problem. And I really fear that there will be more political violence in our society. That's my Nostradamus prediction. I'm not qualified to do so, but that's my fear anyway. Dude.
Hi, Gary. I just want to start off saying I love people who identify as Republican, and I also love people that identify as Democrat.
You're trying to play both sides, dude. How can you do that?
Well, it has to do with love and compassion, I guess, and common good, a common ground. The common ground would be the country, right? And the democracy works in a healthy way when people actually share common ground and have compassion for one another and actually work together, even through their differences. Actually, it's interesting. I heard from older generations growing up that that the youth has lost the ability to sit down at the table and have a coffee and not get upset or storm off or call the other person names. It seems like it's not even a generational problem anymore, that it's like a common problem. That people in all generations who are indoctrinated and partisan treat each other terribly. And it's interesting how many people identify as having religious views, or even just how many people do not identify as having religious views, yet both seem to when it comes to the right and left religion that they are supporting, they seem to act just like religious hypocrites, indoctrinated religious hypocrites who have no love or compassion for the common citizen.
To your point, dude, if you don't mind me interjecting.
That's all my point is that.
I just want to underscore and illustrate this with something that happened yesterday. Okay, thank you very much. I hate that when I go to this website, it talks. I didn't ask this website to talk. Shut up. Right. Oh my God! Stop! I stopped and it's still talking. Okay. What you're hearing in the background is Cornel West, the esteemed professor, former candidate for president of the United States, storming off the set with Piers Morgan during a debate on the death of Charlie Kirk. There's your prime example of exactly what you're talking about, dude.
100%.
He couldn't handle it. How could a guy like Cornel West not handle Piers Morgan? How can Piers Morgan and Cornel West, a professor at Princeton, not have a civil discussion over the issue to the point that Cornel West gets so frustrated that he storms off the set? Isn't Princeton supposed to be an Ivy League university, one of the top universities in the country? Harvard, Princeton. I think isn't that right? Is Harvard supposed to be the top and Princeton supposed to be the next most esteemed university in the country? And a guy of the stature of Cornel West can't handle Piers Morgan? Whatever you thought about Charlie Kirk, he certainly can handle a debate without storming off like that. Just saying. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, it shows a lack of emotional intelligence. I'll just let
I think so. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Thank you, dude. King, you're up.
Yeah, so I do understand why Cornel West would have stormed off. This has been a very difficult conversation to have, particularly with people who, again, lack of empathy, refusing to put themselves in another person's shoes, and their understanding of the environment, the rhetorical environment that all of this is surrounded by. And I'm not talking about from a partisanship perspective. I know that Cornel West has 2 kids, and one of his good friends, he has a well-known friendship with another scholar, Robert P. George, who is a profound conservative intellectual. I also know that Charlie Kirk and Cornel West have had engagements, personal engagements. I've heard them talk about their personal interactions over the last couple of days. But I'm sure that at the time he was probably trying to, I can only imagine, but I would guess that he was having a conversation about some of the words that have been spoken and why they are or are not problematic as it relates to marginalized groups. But I do agree with you that the motive doesn't really matter because, well, firstly, like I said, I don't think this is an issue of partisanship. The pattern that we've been seeing with young men, radicalized young men, lashing out because of the nihilistic indoctrination they've received online, is the through line. The same day that that young man shot Charlie Kirk, another young man shot up a school. 2 weeks before that, somebody else shot up another school. And this has been going on, right? I have thoughts about the partisan leaning that some had no clue about, or what they meant had no clue about, or what they meant. The children are well versed in this. Some of those kids are going to fall deeper into those rabbit holes because of the algorithms, right? And it doesn't even matter the platform. There was a time where people felt more vulnerable going into places like the deep web, but people are being radicalized through TikToks and YouTube and Instagram, and the algorithms are playing a part in this. And so I think that is a way that people from a partisan's perspective can find some commonality about, because there are a lot of parents who are worried about the things in this that their kids are being indoctrinated with as it relates to violence and retrograde ideas. Like one of the moms was talking about how what sparked her to ask her daughter, was she aware of these things, is because somebody in her class was suspended for standing up and saying Hitler was right. And so it provoked this conversation that wouldn't have otherwise happened with this parent and her daughter, right? And so I think that's the larger issue. And I think I'm willing to bet that, this person, like the other person who shot on campus, even though it was a high school campus, also have been exposed to this radicalization. And I think that we need to wake up and take our heads out of our asses as the adults and stop making it about us, or, because we know that both parties have their issues, both ideologies. Any ideology can be turned into something violent and terrible, right? For everyone that talks about, religion, we know that religion even has been used to perpetrate violence on other people. So it's really not about the partisanship. It's, in my opinion, it's about just the fact, the degree of radicalization that is happening amongst young children, and they're growing up with these ideas that are totally retrograde, and that everybody is clueless, and they have access to guns, right? So they have an arsenal, as well as the seeds of violence planted into their worldview, combined with a lot of hopelessness, a lot of confusion, and just a lot of hormones, So I do agree. I don't think that the motive matters that much. I think that there's a bigger issue, and because this can be used politically, that's why the motive is being as emphasized as it is. It's because this motive is being used as justification to clamp down on rights and speech and a whole lot of other freedoms that we've taken for granted up to this point. So I'll yield there.
Thank you, King. Brian.
Hi, Gary. Does the motive matter? I think it could if anybody cared. I think his motive, if it was analyzed by someone who cared, could cause maybe someone to look into why he did it and see if there was any corrections that might be made in the future to help prevent something like that from happening again. When Charlie was assassinated, there was so much blowback on social media that it kind of, I don't know what the word is, kind of incensed me in a way, because I was just learning what happened and didn't even know who Charlie was. But there was this blowback of like, I mean, people were blaming the left, and there was so much. I don't know how to describe it. Just kind of blowback toward the left, and everyone was blaming them before the guy was caught, and really before the news story was out everywhere. So I don't think that any motive is going to change people's minds, and especially when like Scott and so many people already mentioned that the president and attorney general and all these major players on the right, or I should say MAGA, have it ingrained that it's the left. I think in a way that they're going to capitalize on that as much as they can leading into the midterms. It's going to that's good with that, and the gerrymandering. I think they're doing whatever they can to try and save and gain seats. Unfortunately, I think that's going to cause the problem to exasperate. I think it's just a matter of time before something else happens again, especially if we don't change course on the way people are talking. And I'm admitting that the blowback eventually went both ways, because it got real ugly as people was quoting Charlie and that type of thing. It's just an ugly situation that just does not seem to be to de-escalate. But I there's been some good comments so far, and I really don't have much to add. But thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Chris.
Damn it, Gary. How are you today, Gary?
Damn it, Chris. I'm doing fine.
Well, you ain't got to use your black accent, but I appreciate it. At least I know that you hip. Hey, putting King and Brian in front of me is kind of the cheat code on shutting Chris up soon. Because a lot of the things I wanted to talk about has been said, and gratefully so. So let's get straight to it, so I'm not here wasting anybody else's time. Does Robinson's motive even matter? Yes, it does, to both sides, actually. Unfortunately, the investigation that we'll get will be skewed. The FBI working the case will be skewed. And that means motives will matter for the respected administration. Why? Because they can push the narrative that makes them happier. They can push the narrative, as Brian said, that can push them into midterms with a strong base, or try to find a strong base in the sake of a death, which I hate to say it, with how fast they moved as soon as the man's death was announced. They played their hand so fast that it was too obvious that you guys had ulterior motives on his death regardless. It could have been anybody from the right at this point, from the way that they're moving. They would have found a way to utilize it for their gain. Now, oh, poor sorry Charlie Kirk and his family, yeah, great. I'm there for you all. Whatever well wishes you want to send to them, I respect. But the way that the administration, who said that they were friends of Charlie Kirk, decided on utilizing Charlie Kirk's death in the aftermath to turn things into a hate-filled push, an agenda, and a distraction from what we previously seen coming down the pipeline, from the gerrymandering, which was funny that you mentioned that. I believe that was Brian, because the gerrymandering has been looked over. Why? Because we have a new topic on our television screens. The same goes for the Epstein files. The Epstein files are now on the back burner. Why? Because we have to figure out about all these bad apples talking bad about Charlie Kirk. And guess what? Our Congress agreed. The Congress just pushed that stuff right out the back door and said, we'll figure that out eventually, if not ever. Because now we have a bigger fish to fry. People are being mean about Charlie. So the motives do matter for the right. Now let's get to the left. The motives matter for the left too. Because I'm not one of those people that says, well, they're playing it on both sides. Because obviously the rhetoric that's being pushed on from the right is way more detrimental than the rhetoric that's been pushing on the left. And we'll get to that here shortly. But the left can also utilize from this. The left needs to utilize from this because, yes, we don't have all the information. We don't know if just because he had a right-leaning family that he was actually on the right. But what we do know is that the right decided to pull war out as soon as they could. And the left should be speaking to that. Hey, who are they at war with? The left should be speaking to the fact that who are the right declaring war on? Who are they upset with? They have every single aspect of government. They even have the Supreme Court in their pocket, and we can honestly say that with a straight face. The Supreme Court has done a lot of damage in the name of Donald Trump, the president. Let him do it. So the motives here just strictly goes back to, on the left side, hey, these guys said that this was a left-leaning thing. They said that the left is the danger. It's the left job to point the picture.
Well, the president said specifically the Democrats.
Yes, I mean, everybody on the right. I mean, literally, you could have turned on Fox News before you even seen the president, and it was already, the message was already out. I'm going to say that again. The message behind Charlie Kirk's death was out before Charlie Kirk's death. And the only way I can put that and say that in the way with so much vigor and understanding that I have a way more chance to being right than wrong is because the message was instant.
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk, by the way, is by all accounts to this point, this may change, was apolitical in terms of partisan politics. Something to take into consideration.
But the message, by the way, was instant. It took no time to get out the message across the Republican pundits that it's the right's fault, regardless of the information we have.
The left's fault, yeah.
Well, yes, the left's fault. I'm sorry. I do apologize. The left's fault that all of this stuff falls victim to. Before we knew who the guy was, before we even knew the video of him jumping off the back of the building in the Converses, before we realized that he broke down a gun in less than 2 seconds, we found out that it was all the Democrats' problem. That they pushed it and they pushed this and we need to go to war because it's time. Now, let's get back to the last point I want to make. Is exactly what Brian said. Man, King and Brian was cooking. And it might have been King that said this, but I want to give them both shout out for stating the fact that all this stuff is went underneath the radar of parents, of grown adults who consume politics on a daily basis. Okay? Let's understand how well they hid Charlie Kirk in plain sight. Let's understand how algorithmic they was able to hide Charlie Kirk and his message.
What do you mean they were hiding his message? I don't get the point.
What I mean by they were hiding his message, and I don't put a they with a person or a party. I'm saying Charlie was infectious to children. He was talking about who are you, and adults did not know that Charlie Kirk was talking to the youth. Remember when they had
So this is a whole problem.
Let me give you an example, Gary.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. This is a whole problem that we have generationally with some people not understanding that what to them is a legacy way of getting information out. There's a whole different, like people said to, in fact, somebody I know in her 30s asked me, what's Discord? She's already too old to know what Discord is. So there are so many different ways of getting information out that, yes, the older generation, probably many, I mean, how many people came up to the each year and said, I've never heard of Charlie Kirk?
And I think that's a terrible thing, but I do also understand and I sympathize with those people because a lot of those people are just not in the bubble of information, and that's fine. But go right ahead, because I do have a point that I want to make.
No. I'm just trying to explain why that is. Go ahead.
Okay, going back to my point, we all have to remember there was a time where they had children cartoons on YouTube, but in those same children cartoons, they had messages in those children cartoons with the little scary face thing that used to tell the kids to kill their parents and harm themselves. There was a cartoon on YouTube. If you were a parent, you may know this. That they had in the cartoons, they were putting hidden messages in. It was, I forgot what the blippy or whatever the thing was called, but it was a true message being pushed to the youth. But the parents had no clue because they just give the kids the cartoons or the iPad. The iPad eventually puts it all in the algorithmic, and it works on the children. We have to be more understanding on what and Gary, by the last thing, because you brought a great point, but I want to make sure I don't let this skip over. The Charlie Kirk situation wasn't just something that was undertoned by Charlie Kirk to push to the children. He had investors, he had backing. Somebody knew this message was getting pushed to Charlie.
Okay, so now you just taught me something that I didn't know. And I acknowledge.
I know you Googled it.
I acknowledge that I went to ChatGPT, and they reference the Wikipedia. And what it says is, and I was unaware of this. So there were disturbing child-targeted videos on YouTube and YouTube Kids that contain hidden or spliced-in scenes urging self-harm or showing extreme violence.
Bang, bang!
And a number of parent reports and tabloids also circulated claims that some clips contain messages encouraging kids to harm others, including their parents.
Hey.
Major investigations in 2017 through 2019 documented the broader problem known online as ElsaGate. I don't know how I missed this.
Hey, Gary, don't worry, because the people missed Charlie Kirk too, and this man already passed away.
And related phenomena, and showed that malicious actors were slipping grotesque or instructional content into videos that looked child-friendly. Holy freaking
Hey, Gary,
crap.
I'm going to jump off of this bridge with this one. Hey, I want you to also understand Charlie Kirk was doing something very simple. He was pushing a message behind the Christian belief.
Well, I don't know whether it was behind a Christian belief or not, but let me just say that whenever Charlie Kirk went onto a college campus and engaged in these debates, where, by the way, he overwhelmed the 17 and 18-year-old people who
because they're unknowledgeable. They're children.
and he would often point out, I never went to college.
Yeah,
I never went to college.
You
know,
don't.
and he was like Rush Limbaugh used to say, that he could debate you with one arm tied behind his back, kind of thing. That's what Charlie Kirk was doing. But he always had, and by the way, I'm not saying this critically. I'm saying that this was brilliant. He always had camera crews, plural, there, and they would extrapolate from these long exchanges 20-second clips that went on TikTok and Instagram, and that's how he propagandized his message. He was absolutely brilliant at it, but that's what was going on.
All right, Gary, I'm at the home run. This is the home run, so I want you to all pay attention to what I stated. There was once an organization, and I'll just use the organization because we don't know who the persons was or people was that were putting together those videos on children, who actually had a plan to manipulate your children without your knowing. Again, not trying to discredit Charlie Kirk or the message of does Robinson motive even matter? Yes, it matters on both sides, but I want people to understand that, yes, you may not have known who Charlie Kirk is, but understand the system does. And the system knew exactly that you guys wouldn't know who Charlie Kirk was until it was too late. And children are being indoctrinated with information that is not always true, but sometimes hateful. And that's where it gets sticky, because this type of stuff can go over the radar of the adults. Even a Gary who is in this type of media did not understand that children were being harmed by YouTube videos. And this is the same situation we're currently looking at. So I don't want everybody to think that, he hates Charlie Kirk. Hey, he's a human with family and children. I wish he thought about them people more. But the truth of the matter is, people are being indoctrinated from underneath the radar, and our system does understand that. They are literally understanding that you.
So I'm just going to suggest.
Thank you.
I did a little deeper dive into this. There were a lot of investigations by researchers and by journalists, and they couldn't really pinpoint who was behind it, but they found out that these videos were generated by overseas content firms. According to this article in ChatGPT, again, I have not time to check their research, which if I was doing a story, I would have to go beyond just what I'm seeing here. So I'm presenting this with a grain of salt. According to what ChatGPT is saying here, the main motivation was money, exploiting YouTube's algorithm to get clicks from kids. But I don't know, because the subliminal information, I don't think had anything to do with money. And I'm wondering.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you do subliminal gain you more access to money?
Right. But what I'm wondering is, given what we know about Russia and other foreign actors using the internet to cause division among Americans and in Europe, in the various European countries, among the citizens of those countries. It would not surprise me if we ultimately learn that it was something like that was behind all of this, to try to corrupt our society even more than it's corrupt now. Chris, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I was totally unaware of this.
Also, Gary, I just only wanted to say, and for purposes or even reason for the people in the room, I only wanted to bring that up because the information that was being spread was under the radar of the adults that should have been understanding them to check those videos. Watch the videos for your 15 minutes before you allow your children to watch those 15-minute videos. That's my whole point. A lot of this stuff just goes over the adult's head, and then we find out later on that, oh man, this was probably hurting my child, and the parent can be a great parent. It just ends up being something that does not work